So we're on Skype here with Cody, and I happened to notice his Facebook page, and he had a great story on there with some great pictures, and it was being shared a lot. And I asked Cody if he wouldn't mind sharing that with us, but also Cody's a fellow treasure hunter and a fellow YouTuber, and has a treasure hunting channel. And I'll have him talk a little bit about his channel and how you can see some of the great videos that he's putting out. But Cody, with that said, just take it away.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for that. Like you said, my name's Cody, and I'm going to be talking about the Battle of Skull Cave. It's also known as Skeleton Cave or Massacre Cave, and it's in the northern Superstition Mountains of central Arizona, along the Salt River. It was,
and let me stop you for a second. And so the Superstition Mountains, and I'm sure everybody knows about the Superstition Mountains, the Lost Dutchman Mine, and there was a reality show on it here not too long ago. And so a lot of people know about this, but this happened to take place in that area. So sorry for that. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, you're fine. And I'm going to touch on the Lost Dutchman part of it.
Please do.
Yeah, there's a little connection there in a way.
Awesome.
But yes, there was a Apache band that lived in the northern Superstitions. There was probably many sub bands throughout the Superstitions, but there was this one band that lived in this cave. It was more of an alcove, a very large alcove, on top of on a ridge line that overlooked the Salt River, because there was no lakes at that time. And they were this band was very active in raiding along the Gila River settlements. And they were actually celebrating the night that the cavalry was moving in and surrounding their cave. They were just celebrating the return of their warriors from a successful raiding party, like a successful raid along the Gila River. And it was December 26th, 1872. It was the U.S. Cavalry out of Fort McDowell, and with Pima scouts and other Native American scouts along with them. So when the Apaches were raiding along the Gila River, the U.S. Army never could figure out where they were coming from. And so scouts were coming in and telling them, we know where their stronghold is, but nobody really wanted to listen to them. And then finally one day...
So scouts, you mean some of the other Apache Indians was telling them this?
That's right. And they didn't really pay them no mind until one day they just kind of had enough and said, okay, tell us where they are. And one of the scouts said, well, I was actually raised in this cave where you guys constantly don't want to hear us talking about it. So they mounted up and they went out. And this trip it's not a long distance from Fort McDowell to the cave. But when you don't know where you're going and the terrain that this is in, it's pretty rocky and it's pretty rough. Overland, it's a difficult trip. And even to this day, from the Salt River going up, it's a difficult trip. It took several days to get there. They were marching all of Christmas Day in 1872. And it was a cold night on the night that they were actually surrounding the cave. They came upon a small group of huts right before they reached the cave. And so they were constantly on guard. They were trying to make sure that their movements were not being picked up by the Apaches that they were trying to pursue and surround. They wanted everybody in there as much as they could, so that way they weren't exposed and then attacked in the process of trying to attack the Apache. Well, everything happened perfect. They had to take off their boots at one point because a lot of those boot tacks on rock makes a lot of noise. Yeah, boots make a lot of noise on that gravel and that rock and that broken shale and basalt. So they actually put on moccasins to muffle the sounds of their feet going along the ridge lines, trying to surround the place. So that way there was still no notice of anything going awry. But when the attack actually started, the Apaches were so convinced that they could repel the army that they said they weren't going to surrender, and they just boasted insults at them, and they were just cheering and laughing in the beginning. And then once the attack happened, and the bullet holes are still present in the cave walls today from the 45-70 rounds that the army was shooting. Yeah, there's hundreds of them. There's even a couple of Swaros where it's still just dotted, like pot marked, with the bullet holes to this very day.
Wow! So you've been up there?
Yes.
Geez, I might have to come down and visit you and have you take me on a field trip. That'd be interesting to see.
It's a totally humbling experience being up there, and there are still bones and artifacts on the ground and stuff.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, the Apache that lived in that cave had probably lived there for several hundred years. That cave had probably been used by the ancient Salado before that, and who knows before that, because that cave's been there for millennia and millennia and millennia. So who knows what's all there, but there's bones all over the place, and there's if you look around hard enough along the other ridge lines, you can still see bent, corroded casings of 45-70 rounds over the cartridges. I mean, but yeah, when you're standing inside of the cave, you can actually see the Swaros right in front of it that have bullet holes straight through them. They look like little black stains.
Really?
Yeah. It's really humbling when you see those and you see the bullet holes, the indentions in the rock right behind it. It's insane. But so when the attack happened, and the Apaches were boasting and waving insults at the army, they opened up fire, and in front of the cave there was actually a natural rampart, a natural fortification from the fallen rock above the cave. And so they had a natural fortification.
So they figured they was safe from the shooting.
Exactly. And they had every right to feel that way, because they're literally on top of what essentially is a castle, in a sense. And the army, they couldn't hit them. They couldn't hit anybody in the beginning. And then they got the idea that, well, let's roll rocks down on them. So a group that was on top actually started just pushing boulders down on top of the warriors that were behind the battlements, behind the rampart. And then a couple of people noticed that when they were shooting high into the cave walls, it was actually deflecting the bullets down behind the rampart also. Because just shooting at the rampart and shooting at the Apaches wasn't doing anything. But their ricochets were doing a better job than the soldiers were intentionally doing.
So they was shooting at the cave walls and it would ricochet down into the cave.
Exactly. And when the order was given by the lieutenant to just shoot at the cave wall, the bullets would hit the wall and then just scatter down in different directions. And there were several attempts by the Apache to actually break out, and all of them failed except for one Apache, and it was noted, a few soldiers noticed how beautifully dressed this guy was and how tall and just his perfect form and all that. They were impressed with his stamina as he just literally ignored the bullets and just ran straight past the soldiers down this hill to a group of boulders. And to boast about his escape, he just stood up on a boulder and started cheering and boasting about his escape. And the soldiers literally at that point just leveled their carbines at him and took him down, and he fell. So he almost got away.
He thought he was bulletproof, but then he wasn't.
That's right. And after a few volleys and a few more rocks being tossed over the cliff ledge, the order was finally given for the army to charge in because they weren't receiving as much fire from the cave as they were before. And when they got inside, they noticed quickly there was bodies everywhere. There was bodies huddled in certain corners of the cave, and all the survivors were still wounded, some severely, some not severely. Everyone was wounded. There was, I had it right here, it was 76 Apaches killed in the fight. 20 women and children were taken prisoner, and the ones that were killed were huddled behind the ramparts. There was a couple little divots. They're not really cave-like inside of the cave, but they're small little alcoves that they were trying to hide behind, and there was bodies in there too. And there were just bodies everywhere. And whatever contraband that they had, which was the contraband, was stolen goods from the raids that they had gone on and things that they had made there, things that they had traded for, anything that could have been used for a military purpose, they destroyed, or they burnt, or they took for themselves. And that once the army left with the women and children, the bones laid in that cave from that point until the 1920s,
Really?
Or the early 1930s. I think it was a railroad man rediscovered the cave, and the Yavapai Native Americans from Fort McDowell, the Yavapais from Fort McDowell went up there and they retrieved all the bones that they could, and they reinterred them and reburied them, or they did bury them at Fort McDowell. And that's where the bodies from that massacre are today, is at Fort McDowell.
So the bones in that you're talking about, they're just kind of bone shards, broken up pieces, and things that were left there too small, and
Yes,
and if anybody does go up there to see that, be respectful of them and leave them there, and because you get in trouble if you take that stuff. So, anyways.
Yeah, all the bones that were taken were like the large femurs, the skulls, the jaws, the ribs, all that stuff. All the large bones were taken, but what's left is like you said, fragments. Yeah, absolutely, be respectful. The place it's a sacred place. And when I was growing up, I only heard about it, and I only knew of 2 people who said that they were actually been there. But now it's public information. Hundreds of people go to this cave a year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How did you find out? You just heard the story and searched for this on your own, or was there information on how to find this, or how did you find out about this?
Well, when I found out about it, it was through a gold prospecting organization that I've been involved with since the 90s. And they said how to get there, and I always just kind of just programmed it in my mind. And I go into superstitions quite often. Like you said, I'm a treasure hunter, and I'm in different mountain ranges in central Arizona. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go check out this cave. And it was a difficult climb, as is most climbs in Arizona. But it was very beautiful, and it was very humbling to see it. And you're there when you see the bullet scarring on the rocks.
Ah.
Saguaro. You can't miss it.
Wow.
And if you're going from the Salt River, they're called cairns. They're little stacked rocks, and they actually mark the trail going up. And if you're going overland, it's the same way.
So were them put there, way back when by the Indians, or is that more modern, put there to help guide people there, or
the ones that are stacked are more modern, probably from the last 20, 30 years, honestly.
Okay.
But,
So a big question I have for you, and maybe you're going to allude to this. So I know that the Yaqui and the Apache, when they did this looting, robbing, and whatnot, they would secret and hide this stuff away in caverns and in hidden places, and it was big medicine for them to have this stuff, and it was passed on from generation to generations for hundreds and hundreds of years. This went back from the Spanish times. So these treasure caves was built up over hundreds and hundreds of years, and the different clans would have them, and some clans would war with the other clans just to take these away from the other clans, because this was big, powerful medicine for them, they felt. So with that said, do you have any information or anything that they was secreting things away, and do you think that could have been part of the Lost Dutchman Mine stuff also, or is there other things about that?
Well, with that, I don't have a lot of information. I know that they would hide stuff away for trips and for raiding, or for warfare with other bands, or with the army, or with the Mexicans, or with the Spanish. Because when you go on long trips, you have to cache stuff away in order to make the trip easier. You can't just go from point A to point Z. You have to do different steps along the way. So it could be a cache of weapons, a cache of food, extra saddles. It could be anything, extra flints or obsidian. And sorry, it's my cat over there. But I think every culture in human history has made caches and hidden stuff away of some kind, and I'd wager that the Apache and the Yavapai and all that, they would make caches of different things at different points, and even if it's like water storage or food, or even the corn. Trying to think, the corn silos, the silos that which house the corn on cliffs and stuff like that. So that way they have a food storage for hard times or for the winter, or to trade with, And with treasure, I'm such a hardcore treasure hunter. I'm pretty confident that they would cache stuff away and hide it away to keep it away from other people finding it, to bring more people in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that and also, they would hide it like you said, but also it was kind of a trophy for them that they got it from the Spaniards, from the whites, from the and it was sacrificial offering, or an offering to their spiritual power beings, or their.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Because it would be one thing to have trophies from a neighboring tribe or neighboring band.
Yeah, these would be trophy things. This isn't like a cache of their everyday living and and things like this. This is a cache of their trophies. It wasn't valuable. The gold wasn't valuable to them. However, it was valuable that they took it and they cached it away in offerings to their creators or whoever.
Yeah, I know what you mean now. Absolutely, because it's one thing to have trophies from another band or a sub band, but if you brought out a Spanish Mori and the Spanish helmet, be like, "This is what I took."
Yes,
it's a totally different level. It puts you up here to everybody else. Yeah, and I believe that they hid that stuff away. Absolutely, that stuff would definitely be passed down generation to generation to generation. I mean, I think that was even a reference in Dances with Wolves. Do you remember that?
I don't.
But
it's been a long time ago since I seen Dances with Wolf, and if it's been past 10 minutes ago, I've already forgotten. So, so I could watch that show again, man. It'd be just like seeing it for the first time.
Probably. But yeah, there was a Sioux chief in there who, or a Sioux elder who brought out, if we have to face the United States Army, we'll face them, because in my grandfather's time, and he pulls out the Spanish helmet. It's like, we fought them and we pushed them out, and I think we can do it again.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So that was passed down to him, and it would make absolute sense that kind of stuff would be passed down. So not only would it be a war trophy, but it would be like a wisdom story for the children, like learn from our mistakes, or learn what we did to push them out, or to.
And not only that, but I work with a lot of Native Americans, and the stories that I hear, it's not only that, but it's not shared. It's only passed down in the family. It's not even told with the other clan members, the other rest of the tribe. Because it's that sacred to them that they keep it just in their family.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That kind of surprises me a bit.
Yep.
I talked earlier about how there's like kind of a, excuse me, a Lost Dutchman kind of connection with the Skull Cave. Well, if the Spanish had gone into the mountains, which there's trail markers through the superstitions, there's so much evidence that the Spanish were in the Superstition Mountains. If you look hard enough, you'll find the evidence. But then the Goldfield Mountain areas, which is now like it's Eastern Apache Junction, the Goldfield Mountains was known about and documented in P. Maria Alta missions and in letters to family and friends of the gold mines along the Salt River. Now, when expeditions would go into the mountains, the natives would know pretty quick of who's in their mountains, how many they are, or how many there are, and the closest large band that I know of through just my research would have been the inhabitants of that cave. And so,
really,
yeah.
So they was pretty much there all the time. The other tribes, they just migrated in there as with the seasons, and that's why Apache Junction is because that's where they all migrated to, and then would disperse from there and go back out to their other places.
Absolutely, and like there's small ancient ruins all throughout the superstitions. Most of them are just in ruin. Just you unless you know what you're looking for, you're never going to see them. But there's Apache camps where they used to have their wiki ups, and you can, if you know what to look for, like the baking pits and where they would, because Apache did plant corn too. They did do that kind of stuff. And you know what to look for. You can find out where the camps are. But a few of us that I've talked to growing up, I've never heard this in the TV show with the Lost Dutchman or in a lot of books, but what the Peralta massacre and the Gonzales massacre that took place in the Superstition Mountains, they talk about the Apache tribe, but no one's ever talked about the link between Skull Cave and the Peralta massacre because it was probably done by the inhabitants of that cave because it's literally right on the edge of the Superstition Mountains. Yeah, there's a trail going, the old trail from the cave to the Salt River goes along the slope down to the Salt River, and there's other paths which take you from the Salt River along high ridge lines up into the Superstition Mountains. So if they were on foot, they could do it with ease. And if you can imagine growing up in the Superstition Mountains, you'd be a pretty fit character.
Yes, you would.
Would be ripped. You would have so much cardio and endurance. You could probably just cruise through the mountains. And so they could get to places pretty quick. And if that was one band, there's a lot of sub bands that were in there. It would have been way easy to attack somebody in those narrow passes and canyons and own the high ground because most of their trails were along the high ground.
Oh yeah.
Just because in the Rocky Canyon valleys below, it's difficult between the boulders and the cat claw, but if you're up on the ridge lines, there's really nothing impeding your path, so it's easy to move up there.
Cool.
But yeah, I think that this is just my opinion, but that the Peralta massacre and the Gonzales massacre was done so by participants of the inhabitants of the Native Americans in Skull Cave.
So in your opinion, how far is Skull Cave from where you think possibly the Lost Dutchman Mine or some of the Peralta mines are?
Well, I believe that the Peraltas and the Gonzales, or even if it wasn't those families factual, if it was just certain other Spaniards or Mexican families, there's several trails throughout the superstitions. There's several mines that they have made out there. And each Spanish mine had its own Spanish. It was kind of like labor gangs in a way. Like there was a miner, and then he has his work crew. But as far as where I think the massacres took place and how far they are, they're not far. The cave is not far from where I think the massacres happened.
So, back to my question of where they spirited away the what they got from these massacres. Has there been any mention of anything caves like that found where it was full of these Spanish artifacts? The helmets, the swords, the gold bars, or and I'm sure if that stuff would have been found, it had been kept hush hush. But is there any stories like that, of anything like that being found near or kind of close by Spirit Cave or Skull Cave? Sorry.
Yeah. I've heard of 2 stories of things being found when involving Spanish artifacts. There's a place that's called Spanish Graveyard. I think it's called Castle Rock on maps. There have been stories of, I think it was a man and 2 family members, let's just say, that found Spanish breastplates and a couple helmets, but they were odd-looking helmets inside of these this boulder outcroppings, which is called Spanish Graveyard, because that's where some people believe that a small massacre took place there. And even after Spain lost control of the Southwest in 1821, the Mexicans still used the breastplate for their cavalry. They still did. Uh-huh. And so it didn't surprise me that if the Mexicans took over the mining fields, that, I'm going into a bad country and narrow passes and canyons. I'm going to try to be protected. So I'm going to try to wear it. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So when they said that they found that, I'm like, I can believe it. Yeah. I haven't seen them, but there's also a story of over along Iron Mountain. Somebody said that they found 2 large Spanish spurs up along a hill over there. But as far as like caches of other things like that, I really can't say. Besides those 2 stories, Iron Mountain and the Spanish Graveyard, which is Castle Rock. But so, I wouldn't be surprised. There's holes and there's caves all through the superstitions.
So I've never really hiked up through there. So I don't know that. I've just spent a little bit of time, but not enough to even know what I'm really talking about. However, I've interviewed few people. Are you from that area, Apache Junction, or you go there a lot?
I was raised in Gilbert, which is not far from Apache Junction, and I've lived in Prescott, and I think the locals call it Prescott, but I live in Clarkdale now.
So I interviewed Ron Feldman, who has documented. I don't know if you know who Ron Feldman is. He's he's the only person that's ever got a treasure trove agreement on wilderness land, and he went in and excavated with the help of archaeologists from the local college there, and they documented that it was a Spanish mine there. They didn't find any treasure, but they did document that there was a Spanish mine there. And so there's a lot of people saying that there never was any Spanish mining going on up there, but it's been documented. There was.
Yeah. And I first met Ron Feldman when he gave a presentation of him excavating of that old Spanish mine. My father was the president of Roadrunner Prospecting Club for almost 10 years, so I got to hear all sorts of stories and go to all sorts of places. I wish I could have participated in the excavation of that Spanish mine. I wish I could have.
That would have been cool, huh?
Yeah. I met Ron Feldman probably about 10 times in the past 20 years, and most of them have been through Roadrunner Prospecting Club and running into him at Goldfield, Ghost Town.
Uh-huh.
And but yeah, there's been documentation of the Spanish mines, and obviously Ron Feldman's case, he actually excavated it with an archaeologist. I think it was out of ASU.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So I wish he had found gold in there. That would have been great. That would have been great.
Yep.
But yeah, I think the participants of the Peralta massacre came from Skull Cave. That's what I believe, or at least some of the people who took place in the massacre or took part in the massacre came from Skull Cave. That's my opinion.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about you, Cody, and what you like doing, and about your YouTube channel. And if people want to watch that, how do we find you on YouTube, and how do we find you on Facebook? Because I know you have some great articles on Facebook also.
Oh yes, I post things on the Facebook page every Friday. Lost treasure stories, treasure symbols, old Spanish trail markers, tips on survival. And with the YouTube channel and the Facebook page, it's called the Arizona Treasure Hunter. I'm the Arizona Treasure Hunter.
For your YouTube channel or for Facebook?
Both of them.
Both. Okay.
Yes.
I'll put a link down. I'll put a link in the descriptions here to both your Facebook and your YouTube channel.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, just go to Facebook, or you can click on the link, or just go to Facebook or YouTube and just type in the Arizona Treasure Hunter, and I'll pop up. And my YouTube channel is based on just my approach to treasure hunting, and my approach is going through my military experience, my extensive field experience from just growing up placer mining and lode mining in Arizona, and also my extensive desert survival experience, because I use desert survival to prolong my stays out in the desert to keep treasure hunting and gold mining, and also my approach to doing research. And that's about it. I'm reading and studying all the time, and I've watched a lot of your stuff as well. And so
cool. So how did you get interested? I mean, obviously your dad was president of the local gold prospecting club there, so obviously as a young age you started. But did he do treasure hunting too, as far as looking for Spanish treasures and things like that, or was he strictly just into the prospecting?
He wasn't really interested in treasure hunting, because when he went out gold mining and gold prospecting, he would always have results. But when you do treasure hunting, you don't really have a lot of results.
That's right. It takes
a lot of your trips.
Yep.
So he's like, son, you can do the treasure hunting thing. I'm going to do the gold mining thing.
What got you interested into the treasure hunting thing then?
Well, when I moved to Arizona when I was 8, and my dad got religiously into gold mining. And so I would just wander off into the desert, as young boys do, and I would find ancient ruins, petroglyphs, pottery shards, broken arrowheads, all that kinds of stuff. And then I eventually found Spanish symbols carved on rocks. And so I would just jot them down, just kind of copy them, go home and just see what they meant. And from me doing that for over years and years and years and years and years, I finally just adopted a different way of thinking, just my approach to what they mean. And I found my first Spanish campsite when I was about to graduate high school. Since then, I've just, I don't know how to say it. I just got, the more things I found, the more things made me become more obsessed with the treasure hunting aspect.
So I just want to say this. You said your dad said that you can find more prospecting than you can for treasure hunting, and that might be true for tangible, hold in your hand things. But let me tell you, the treasure is the things that you mentioned. The campsites you found, the Indian writings, the Spanish symbols, that is something that you've seen, and most people will never ever get to see. And that's treasure. To me, that's my treasure. Getting out into the wilderness and just exploring and finding things that people haven't seen for hundreds of years. That's a treasure.
Exactly, exactly. And if you have like an object you're trying to treasure hunt for, research is key, but also how you conduct your field work is key too. And when you find answers to your questions in the research, just that knowledge alone is a huge treasure, because the more you know, the more you realize you didn't know, and so you appreciate what you know now. And it's just, knowledge is a huge treasure in itself too. But if you want to check out Skull Cave or Massacre Cave, you can get to it from the Salt River or from overland, or going to the cave overland and not doing it from the Salt River. But either way, it's a difficult trip. I've seen people just looking across from the other part of the Salt River, probably I would say about one person every other day goes up into the cave. So it is frequented a lot. And if you see trash, pick it up. If you see somebody else, give them a moment, because it is a blissful place, but it also is a very humbling place and a sacred place. And just leave artifacts where you see them. Don't pick them up. If you touch them, just put them back where you found them, and just leave the site as you discovered it, so we can enjoy it for future generations. Our children, our children's children can enjoy the same experiences that we feel when we visit that place.
That was great advice, and thank you for saying that. And Cody, thank you for talking to me, and that's a wrap.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Terry.